Okay, we're live on YouTube. The meeting is yours, Mr. Sargent. You just let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
I don't think it's mine anymore.
I'll take over.
Thank you.
Let's call the meeting to order and have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
Flag.
Allegiance to the flag, United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands,
Which is
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and
liberty and
justice for all.
justice for all.
Jerry, are you there?
I'm here.
Can you make a roll call? And we have to do a roll call for all motions on video now.
All right. Hurst,
Here.
Duff, Nye,
Here.
Martini, Sargent,
Here.
Malik,
yes, here.
Snyder.
Here.
Okay. Any additions to the agenda?
I do not have any.
Nope.
None? Okay. Do I have to move that we accept the agenda as written, Jerry?
Yes.
As said.
Okay. So moved.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Hurst,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Martini,
Here.
Sargent,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, approval of the minutes. Anybody have any?
Hurst,
Yes. Here. Yes. Sorry.
Mike, Bob Malik here.
Yes.
Do I need to, since I wasn't involved in those minutes, do I need to abstain or can I approve them?
I guess that you can abstain, Bob.
All right, I wasn't sure, so. Thank you.
I didn't see anything particularly onerous.
Nor did I.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues either.
Okay, I moved
So
it.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
roll call vote. Hurst,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Martini,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Malik,
I abstain.
Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, call to the public. Do we have any public? I don't see anybody on here from the public. Brian, do you see anybody trying to get in contact with the board?
Oh, no callers at this time.
Okay, we're going to move on to new business then. Wanted to, it's kind of a neat opportunity for us using Zoom, where we're able to bring in David Wardell. I think David's all the way up in the UP, aren't you, David?
I'm over in Holland.
Oh, Holland, sorry, I'm close to the UP. Great beer over there in Holland. And then Paul Hausler. Dave Wardell is with Dune Technologies, and he's provided a quote for transponder system so that we can measure the lake level and other aspects of the lake if we can, if we deem them to be necessary. So David, I'd like to turn this over to you, and maybe you can go through the system, the board, your system, and explain to us how it works. And if anybody has any questions of you in this system, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, the quote I provided so far was just a couple different options through email, and I don't think I submitted a formal estimate yet. One system just does level, one does level and conductivity, and one does level and then a lot of different water quality parameters, pH and ORP, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, conductivity. Okay.
Yep.
And if you all want to turn me over as presenter, I can go over the pieces of equipment. And,
Great.
Okay. I think that, I mean, we've discussed this before, Mike. You guys are monitoring levels and you want to be notified when it's over a certain level, or
If possible, if we could get an alarm or some kind of push notification.
okay. And that's your primary application that you're concerned about.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, our number one goal is to be able to monitor the lake level because we have dam. If whatever, I think temperature comes with that.
Yeah.
And then if, you know, then whatever features can be added on that in addition, maybe even in the future or at a separate station. So that's kind of, we may get into turbidity, we may get into conductivity, all those things.
Okay.
Number one is we want to get started with the temperature.
All right.
I'm sorry, lake level. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I completely understand. Can someone turn me over to as presenter?
You just have to share your screen at the
Oh
bottom.
yeah, I gotta find the. Oh, there it is. Okay. Usually I can. Where's it? Slideshow. Okay, can you all see full screen PowerPoint?
not yet. I can't. I just see your normal screen, not the presentation mode.
Oh, I see.
I see it.
How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just background on me. I'm a hydrogeologist. My MS is actually from Western Michigan. This is a general presentation. We're not going to go through the whole thing. We're just going to focus on the things that you need. But you know, I do monitoring systems. I primarily sell them. I don't really install them very often, but I do go out in the field and operate everything that I sell. We're going to focus on the in situ products here. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see these are all our different types of transducers. And these are water quality parameter sondes, water quality sondes. These do multiple parameters, okay? We actually have a HydroView is the name of our telemetry system. And this is actually the old equipment. I've got slides with the new equipment on there. These are water quality. These are if you want to do pH, ORP, conductivity, DO, temperature, and everything else. This is what the unit looks like. You want to look at the camera, okay? It fits inside a 2-inch piece of PVC. It's got 2 D cells on it. It'll run for about, I would say 6 to 9 months with 2 D cells. So you can replace those pretty easily. You know, the transducers don't need any type of maintenance. You can put them out there and leave them low enough where they're not going to freeze when Wolverine Lake freezes, and you'll be fine. Okay. These are just, This is actually the top of our telemetry unit right here. Okay? It's about the same size as this thing, except it fits like that inside a well, and you just plug a cable right there. It's very simple setup. All you really have to do is press that, set it up out in the location that you want, secure it, and press that button. It'll turn on and start transmitting. They in situ built a telemetry system that is extremely easy for people to operate. It's designed for our consultant base, our consultant client. I used to build telemetry systems all the way going back to 1995, when you had to take everything in analog and to an A to D converter into a third-party data logger, and then it was a nightmare. You really had to know how to do it. It's why the USGS and people like that have very advanced systems, you need people to operate them all the time. Now, telemetry's gotten a lot more user-friendly. Okay, these are our transducers. And what we suggest is using a PSIA transducer, or a non-vented transducer. It is going to look just like this. And what that means is that it takes, it reads in PSIA, or absolute pressure. It does not compensate for barometric pressure, which you need to do. But since you have a telemetry unit, we have a barometric sensor inside the telemetry unit, and that compensates the data before it's sent to the cloud. Why do you want a PSIA sensor? Because if not, you have to use a vented sensor, and you have to maintain a vented sensor with desiccant and a setup in which you have to keep humidity and moisture out of the sensor. Okay? That's unnecessary for your application, and it's less expensive to go with a PSIA sensor anyway. All right? So that's what the sensor will look like. And that's a vented unit. These are accessories. As you can see, that desiccant would have to go inside the telemetry. We're not going to do it anyway. We do have cable splitters in case you wanted to add sensors later to the same telemetry location. You can split off and use different types of sensors. If you use an Aquatrol 200, which is level temperature and conductivity, that unit, you can put a copper guard on it and a copper nose, and that's great for anti-fouling. So what happens is you're going to get algae and just growth on the sensor. If you're just doing one transducer, it's not a problem. If you're doing water quality and you're doing long-term monitoring months at a time, and I know what the lakes get like out here, and you're going to want something that helps with the fouling. And what that does, it prevents growth from getting on the sensor and getting inaccurate data. This is a copper guard that would go on this unit right here. I just have a stainless steel one, but a copper guard would maintain the help with anti-fouling. Then you have things like locking well caps and well docks and things like that. For you guys, I would probably recommend when you install a system, I don't know if you're going to do it on someone's dock or whatnot, you can slide a transducer. You can go out and get a piece of PVC from Lowe's, okay?
Okay.
You can drill a couple holes in it, whatnot, because you're not dealing with a screen system. You just need it to be open so the lake water can get in there, all right? And then this locking well dock and well cap right here, the telemetry can slide down into the 2-inch piece of PVC, and you have a carabiner on the telemetry unit that hooks into this well dock, and it holds it in place inside the well, and then you can lock it and no one will mess with it. Or at least they'd really have to, they can't just come by and take off with it. Okay. This is our telemetry unit. as you can see, there's a carabiner right there. That's what you would attach to the well dock. And then this thing would slide down the well, this end pointing down the well, down hole. And then you just have a cable that goes to your transducer. It's that simple.
Hmm.
These run off the shelf batteries. You have a 2-year battery life. I know you can Bluetooth and talk to it if you want to. You have barometric compensation built in along with continuous GPS. You also have different types of encryption, but more or less, you have a cellular signal that it downloads whenever you want it to. You program it to download at certain times of the day, like maybe once a day or once every few days. And the data goes to a website, which is our cloud system that shows the data.
Does that, sorry to interrupt, but do you have to submit the whole unit underwater?
No. This system right here is at the top of the well. The transducer and part of the cable will be submerged.
Okay,
All right.
gotcha.
This is what our portal looks like, but I'm going to pull it up live, a demo live system that shows you the actual data. But you all you can have a username and password. Anybody can go there that has a username and password, look at the data. It's time series. You can view in and look out. You'll have barometric data. You'll have level. You'll have temperature. Again, it is, you have an alarm capability. I'm not exactly sure how it alarms. It will be either an email or a text or both. And then there's one button at the bottom and you can click on it and it downloads all the data from the website. Okay.
Okay.
I think, is there like multiple levels of access to the data? Like you have some specific people that have login that can see everything, but something that maybe we could put on our website that just like gives a generic like depth of the lake that anybody can, maybe there's an API the website can pull and actually real time have the depth on the website? Or is does it have to be through this application? Because I'm just thinking, obviously for us, it's going to be good for management of the lake level, but for residents, I think it probably would be nice to have the data available, and we probably don't, want people logging into the meter and doing all that. But
yeah,
I think what we really would be, I'll just give you my own example. I live under a bridge, and the height of the lake affects how I have to get my boat under the bridge. If we have something that's like accurately measuring the height of the lake, it would be great information for me to have.
Okay.
I'll have it, obviously, as part of being on this board, but I'm sure there's residents that would like to have similar information.
I'm not sure if that's possible. I think you'd have to open it up and let people just look at it. You're not going to have access to the sensor. You're just going to have access to the data.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm wondering if the data, if there's like I said, an API or something we can pull from the website, but
There might be.
okay.
I'm a geologist, not a software engineer, but I work with them, and it's something I can ask them.
Okay.
Okay. All right. This is what a multi-parameter looks like. These are all your sensors: conductivity, turbidity, pH and ORP, and an optical DO sensor. It has a wiper system to keep the junk off the sensors. And essentially, but these usually, a transducer is around, $700-800. A conductivity unit gets up around $2,500, and a multi-parameter is around $7,000, $6,000, $7,000, maybe more. Okay. These are all details on the sonde. These are smart sensors. They have chips on board the individual sensors, so you have to calibrate these things. You're gonna have to pull them probably every 3 months and clean up the unit and calibrate each sensor. You need calibration solutions. I don't know if you're willing to do that, but no matter what product you ever bought, you'd have to do that for a sign. Ours was re-engineered just a few years ago. You know, we have a flat face so the brush can clean everything off. It's compact. It's got Bluetooth on it. You can talk to it with your phone, any phone, iPhone, Android. That's the wiper system. You can put sensors on the SON though. You can put around 5 or 6 sensors on the unit at any one time. Okay. You've got things like, depth or level, but you can add blue-green algae, the phycocyanin or phycourethrin, rhodamine, chlorophyll. Our standard units are pH and ORP are actually on one probe, conductivity and temperature are on one probe, turbidity is all oxygen level, and then nitrate, chloride, ammonia, things like that, ion selective electrodes.
So could I ask a question at this point?
Yeah.
With these different things, for instance, so if we understood what some of those measurements might mean, for instance, when we could forecast a algae outbreak.
Yeah, an algal bloom, you would be using one of the blue-green algae sensors. Phycocyanin, I believe, is fresh water, and phycourethrin is salt water. And don't hold me to that; it's one or the other. And these are used out on Lake Erie to help forecast and monitor algal blooms out there.
Would it be sensitive enough? Is the ecology of a lake such as ours? Would this equipment pick it up? I mean, does the lake begin to make some changes chemically prior to these things showing up, or is it going to clog my prop before the sensor tells me?
I'm sure that it's going to pick up the changes and warn you of that. The question is, what do you do about it? You guys have a lot of phosphorus running into the lake and you're getting algal blooms?
We had some this year.
Okay.
More so than other years. We seem to have more. So
okay.
I don't know if it's people using the wrong kind of fertilizer on their lawns or what. But
yeah, it's usually phosphorus related. So, I mean, we don't have a phosphorus sensor, but nitrate might help, something like that. But,
okay.
What I'm saying is unless someone's designated to take care of this thing every week for those types of sensors, it's something that you could do. It's just, you're going to have to, it's not like throwing out a transducer and just letting it go. All right.
Yeah. That's too bad.
I know. Optical DO has a cap. It's very easy to use. Conductivity is pretty straightforward. Turbidity, these are all standard EPA approved methodologies on all the sensors. And we have a refillable, reference design on our pH and ORP, wiper and the copper guard. All right, so this is all technical stuff. So what I want to do is go to new share. All right. Can you all see the hydro view in front of you? It's all the data.
Yes.
Okay. This is what hydro view looks like. You guys could probably, you can see here we are, we're looking at the sensors. You can, there's a Google map on here. You can see the sensors that you're monitoring. And I'm going to pull these in and do these tighter. All right. You can see as I zoomed in, less sensors were able to be seen. Okay. So you're going to have a lake. You're just going to have one unit, not a big deal. And all your data is going to be pretty straightforward. So you want to see depth only. All right. you're going to get basically your line's going to look like this, okay? But you can look at all your data over time. Oops. All right, so there's your data. You're like, all right, let's just look at our data. That time you zoom in and you say, all right, well, what happened this day? All right. And see what happened during those days. And these are different locations. You're just gonna have one line.
Does it have what? Does it have weather in the app or no?
It doesn't have weather. I'm not sure if the precipitation here is at Committee Road and Point. So they have they've tied in precipitation data for these units. I don't know how they tied that in though.
As it, so would it include precipitation from some local weather station or something, or this is something paid for
What
extra?
we had is a rain bucket. I would have to look into how they tied the data into it. We do have like a rain gauge tipping bucket that can attach to the system. Okay, I'm assuming you're gonna want level or depth, and then you probably want precipitation too, huh?
I mean, I think it's a good thing to have when looking at level and depth. I mean,
Okay, precip, level.
well, part of the thing is, you know, we are doing some manual control of the gates that control the lake level, right? So we try and do some preemptive potentially if we know there's weather coming, but if we had data that showed us the correlation, we can maybe do a better job.
Yep. Okay.
How easy is it to hook up a weather station to this system?
I sold a system in that we just put in, and I sold a separate weather station to them, to my client, because that's the way they wanted it. So I've never had one tie in here, but I would get them. I would basically go and talk to and sit to and talk to them how we would integrate a rain gauge, and I'd get back to you guys, let you know how it goes.
Okay.
But I mean, it's designed to work, so all the data comes in. I didn't get rid of the. Hold on a second. As part of the it's supposed to be able to. You're supposed to be able to plug in a weather station that we sell into the telemetry unit. So I don't know if it's physically connected or it's a Bluetooth connection. And then you can export the data by clicking here, and the raw data gets sent to whoever you have set up. It'll download the data. Okay. You click download the data. And I don't even know if I have access. Basically, if it's set up, this is a demo unit. So it exports it. Our servers are down and they'll receive an report within 24 hours. Okay. You can put on historical data into here, load it into the database, and it'll graph it out for you. All right. Any additional questions here?
I have a question on data retrieval. Do we have to pay for a service, right, to get the the upload, right?
Yeah, you pay $35 a month, and that gives you access to the site where all the data is, and you can download it whenever you want.
So it's as many downloads, as many inquiries as we want at $35 a month?
Yeah, at $3,500 a month, what the difference is, how often the data, see, our server system,
$35 a month, right? 3,500.
$35 or 3,500?
Yeah,
$35.
$35. Okay. Just,
Oh,
just,
okay.
just
All right.
correcting.
no, it's $35 a month. What we'll have to do is program the query time. That is, our servers have to query and go out and get the data from the telemetry unit. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it contacts, that's the cellular plan. And I don't know if that's going to be daily or hourly. That can affect the price on the data plans.
Okay.
But it's not a huge amount of money or difference. Okay? I imagine some
We don't need
like
we don't
yours-
need depth more than daily, I don't think.
No, I would assume it's like daily is probably not a big deal. And that's
Yeah.
probably around 35 a month. Okay?
Any way to get a push on a set a limit and have a push to alarm?
Yes, that's part of the system.
Okay, so if we set a max limit and say, okay, once it hits that, send out an alarm, it'll go out.
So, yeah, well, you would basically, you'd set it up that someone would get an alarm if it goes high, or it could probably text a bunch of people or email a bunch of people. Okay?
Okay.
All right?
I notice you have on your map an awful lot of sales in the New Orleans area. I would imagine that's a place where they're interested on how quickly water rises from time to time.
Yeah, this is actually, they have turbidity, they've got discharge on here. They've got a lot of stuff. And this is a demo unit. You can see the data is older,
Yeah,
2016. And this is just a demo that we have, but they've got all the data going in there. So I know they know how to manage these capabilities.
well, they want to make sure Lake Pontchartrain stays where it's supposed to.
Exactly.
David, this is Bob Malik. I have a question. In your early part of this presentation, you said the batteries would last 6 to 9 months.
That's on a multi-parameter
What?
like this. The transducer.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. The
Well, my question is, what is the cost for replacements on those?
they're off the shelf D cells. So about $6.
All right. So in other words, if they take a regular type battery is what I'm saying.
Yes. Now
Okay.
our
Yeah,
transducer.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Our transducers have 10-year batteries in them. All right. And then the
A 10-year battery, you said?
10-year lithium battery in the transducers.
Okay.
And then the telemetry has off-the-shelf batteries, so probably D cells in those units, and those last 2 years.
Okay. Now, is there a progression? Let's say your 10-year battery goes out in 3 years. Is it prorated to something or?
Oh, it's mostly set to how often it's taking data. So if you're only taking data once an hour or every 4 hours, it'll last, at least 8 years or so.
Well, I just, being on the council, okay, when we talk and somebody asks a question, I want to be able to relate back to the other council people, the item and what's involved, that's all. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to degrade in any way, but just so I have total information to go back with. Thank you.
No problem. If you all put a system out, it should, it probably is only going to need annual maintenance, meaning someone should probably go out there, pull it, make sure the transducer's okay. If you, like I said, the batteries, I would, if it was my monitoring system, I'd probably put new batteries in the telemetry once a year,
Okay,
just to make sure you don't lose any data. Okay.
fine. Thank you.
I'll go over you want me to go over the pricing real quick that I sent Mike?
Yeah, please.
Okay, hold on. Okay. New share. All right, can everybody see my email now?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is just, I might be off a little bit on some of the stuff, but it's generally correct, okay? So if we went with level and temperature only, a level sensor, 30 PSIA sensor, which means it can handle a 35 feet of head range. What's the depth of Wolverine Lake? 20 feet?
Well, it depends on where you're at.
Well, we're gonna put this on the dam.
Yeah.
I think this is gonna go on the dam and it probably is 8 feet
5
deep,
or 6.
maybe.
Yeah, it's less than that. It depends how close to the dam it gets.
I was being
Right.
nice.
Yeah, nothing deeper than 8, that's for sure.
We're really only worried about the top 2 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you want to put it down near the bottom, not on the bottom, but near the bottom, because you want head over the sensor and you don't want it to freeze.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not
So that's
sure.
how-
I think that, I guess I don't actually know, because we do lower the lake in the winter. I live back by the dam. I mean, at least within the first 100 feet back off my house, it's frozen straight to the bottom of the lake. So this might have to be more towards the middle of the, the little back bay here. So,
All right. Well, you're going to want it secure.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll send you we'll get you the correct range on the transducer. It doesn't change the price. The wireless Trollcom is, hold on. This is what a transducer looks like. If anybody can look at the screen. And then this has a short cable and it's got a connection on it right there. That's what plugs into the telemetry. All right.
So how many feet do we need for this tube for our PVC pipe?
Well, that depends where you're putting it.
Well, what's the minimum? Because we may have a problem with depth here because that part of the lake isn't super deep. So
no, you gotta put this unit down here and get a cable length that goes from where you're setting to telemetry down to where you're going to put the transducer.
gotcha. All right.
Okay.
Well, to that matter, do we need to have it in the water when the lake freezes? I mean, is it something we pull out seasonally?
Oh, you can just pull it out anytime you want.
So I'm not concerned about the lake overflowing in the winter.
All right. You pull it and then put it back in once the ice goes away.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, this is a Bluetooth adapter. This is your communication to this unit when you want to program it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now this will be you can program this to collect data too, and you can download it and look at it. But it pops in at the top of the cable, and then you Bluetooth that, and you just talk to it with your phone, and you program it. All right. And when you program it, all you're doing is setting a level reference, or however you want your data to be delivered to the portal, to HydroView. So you would have to, before you set it up, you'd have to say, all right, well, what am I doing? Do we know the lake level? What's our datum? How are we going to report it? Are we going to use mean sea level? Are we going to use a dam datum point that everybody can understand? You could do it feet from the top of the dam. You could do whatever you want. You could program the transducer to measure positive down or positive up.
Gotcha.
Okay. That's just whatever you tell me, I can tell you how to program it. It's pretty simple.
All right.
All right. You need a cable. I had estimated $500 for a cable. You guys are it's probably gonna be more like 300 for a cable. The ViewLink system is $795. That's the telemetry unit. HydroView pricing, $35 a month per month.
Mm-hmm.
And then a locking well cap and a 2-inch well dock $3,200 for level only.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
That I think that includes the data with 1 year of data services. And then level troll with connectivity is the same. It's like a transducer, but you can see it's got a connectivity sensor on it. Okay. So there's a transducer down here. And by the way, all our transducers are diaphragm. So it's it's like your eardrum. So you don't want to poke that. So it's got a cap on it. And then the conductivity unit right there is what measures the electrical conductivity. And that can output in salinity, total dissolved solids, specific and actual conductivity, lots of different parameters. Okay.
All right. So
And-
I'm
and
gonna let you know that the next level of pricing is not on the table right now. So I don't think we need to go there.
Okay. All right. Well, level temperature, if you added conductivity, it's going to add $1,200 to it.
Gotcha.
And then, yeah, the next one up is almost 10,000.
All right, so I think what we want to do, David, is we want to discuss this. We'll probably come back to you with a more robust quote. I think we're going to make sure that we take care of Bob's concerns about annual and long-term maintenance. So we'll want to add that to the quote, but I think I understand. And you told me on the phone that you would actually come over here and set this up, right?
Yeah, I can organize that, especially because of COVID, because I can't go see customers very often.
All right.
But you guys, it's not hard to set up.
Doesn't sound like it's hard, but
No, this is something, basically, if I came over and set it up, basically, I would just program the unit, plug it in, and I'd have to call in situ to turn on the telemetry.
All right. Okay, does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, Bob Malik again. On that $35 monthly charge, and because of our lake level, if we start a drawdown in October, if we pull that transponder, it'll be out November, December, January, February, and March. Would we still be paying the $35 a month fee for monitoring if it's out and not in use?
If the system's on and it's out there, it automatically bills. I can ask them to say, look, if they're going to turn it off, they can alter the charges. Maybe only charge you guys 8 months out of the year or 9 months. It's something I can bring up. I'm not in charge of it. I represent in situ in the Midwest and obviously in Michigan. So I work on applications. I do sales. I do some installations and things like that when I can. But I can't control what they're going to charge you on that stuff. I can ask them.
No, I appreciate that. And again, it's just one of those things because of our depth, on where it would be and the months it would be in. To me, it's a logical question. But I'm new to all this water board stuff, so I might be asking stuff's a little out of line. But again, it's one of those. If I don't ask, I don't know.
No, Bob.
That's a good point, Bob.
You can ask me. You guys can ask me whatever you want. I'm not going to lie to you because I want you to. I want to get. I want you to get the good data, and I want it to do what you want it to do.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. You want me to? I can stop the share.
All right.
And
I think the next steps are we'll discuss this and probably get back to you for a quote that is specific to what we think we need, and we'll add some of the other questions about annual, long-term maintenance, as whatever battery costs are in there, as well as the months that we need to confirm on, the months that it's not in operation if we're paying for a monitoring bill or not. Okay.
okay. is there a way, do I need to, someone grab control of the meeting? So I'm not controlling it anymore? Do I pass it back to you guys?
I don't know if you have to.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
nothing that you need to do for that.
Okay, all right, so you all want me to leave now?
If you want to, we're gonna move on to Paul's presentation. So that's
David, thank you very much.
Oh, no.
Yeah, thanks.
and next steps, David. I'll be getting back to you with a more detailed request for quote. Okay.
All right, I got you on my list of stuff, so I'll be.
All right.
I got you,
All
all
right.
right?
Thanks, David. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
everybody. Have a good
Oh,
evening.
thank you.
You too, thank you.
Thanks for the presentation.
Stay safe.
All right, Paul. I think you're up. Guys, we'll discuss the transponders a little bit later in the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, Bob?
That's fine.
All right.
Hear me now?
There you go.
Muted before.
There you go.
So find the right screen here. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
There we go. Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
what I'm showing is the 2020 water quality report. It's a 4-page document. It's a little more concise. I gave Mike some additional data because it doesn't have a lot of the raw data. It's just kind of an overview of the lake as a whole, how the water quality affects it, how lakes are classified. There's basically 3 classifications: oligotrophic, mesotrophic, and eutrophic. And basically, oligotrophic are the deep lakes that don't have much plants. They don't have many nutrients, so they're generally considered optimum for like swimming, scuba diving, things like that. The water clarity is usually really good. Off when they're cold. Lake Superior is a oligotrophic lake, so if you ever swam in Lake Superior, I'm sure you can attest to the fact that it's cold. And then the other extreme is eutrophic, which are lakes that have a lot of plant growth. They have a lot of algae growth, generally have soft sediments. So in between those two is mesotrophic, which is over half the lakes in Michigan are classified as mesotrophic. So Michigan has a fair amount of high quality lakes. So the first page is kind of a discussion of that and how lakes age over time. And basically a lot of lakes start out as oligotrophic, particularly natural lakes that are carved out by the glacial activity. And then over time, they start to fill in based on things coming in from the watershed, and then the plants and animals dying and dropping to the bottom. And eventually the lakes get shallower and they move to more of a terrestrial, what you would call a wetland. And eventually over time, the wetland can actually become upland. This is over centuries and thousands of years, so it doesn't happen overnight, obviously. So one of the things we use to measure how a lake stacks up compared to other lakes, or you can classify it based on some of the parameters that we measure in water quality, are called trophic state indicators, which again, those 3 classifications are different trophic states. So there's a discussion here about the 3 primary measurements that go into trophic state classification. Those are phosphorus, which David alluded to, that can cause both plant and algae growth in the aquatic system. Chlorophyll A, which is a rough measurement, it's a pigment that imparts the green color to plants and algae, but it's also a rough measurement of how much algae you have in the water at any given time. So that is something we collect twice a year from the 3 deep basins on the lake. And then Secchi disc is a relatively easy measurement. This is something that a lot of lake residents do on their own, is go out over the deepest part of the lake, drop a segmented disc down. It's an 8-inch wide, and it's got black and white quadrants. You drop it down until you can't see it anymore, and that's basically the Secchi depth measurement, which is an estimate of the clarity of the water over at any given time. And then the state of Michigan has these classifications. This is for lakes in Michigan. If you were in another part of the country, these parameters, these values might be a little bit different. This is the upper Midwest or Michigan values. So an oligotrophic lake has total phosphorus of less than 10 micrograms per liter, which equates to parts per billion. So it doesn't obviously take much phosphorus in a system to cause growth of algae and plants. When you're looking at the difference between oligotrophic and eutrophic, only 10 parts per billion, you can have that drastic change. So it really doesn't take that much phosphorus coming into a system to cause severe issues. Chlorophyll A, again, this is so lakes that are oligotrophic typically have chlorophyll A less than 2.2 parts per billion, and lakes that are eutrophic typically have chlorophyll A above 6 parts per billion. And then Secchi transparency, lakes that are oligotrophic typically have values that are greater than 15 feet. A lot of times you'll get up in the 25, 30 foot depths for the oligotrophic lake. And then eutrophic are typically less than 7.5. And then this map shows where we've been collecting the samples since 2013. There's a small deep hole on Penny Arm, the deepest part of the lake, which is about 57 feet out in the main body. And then there's a 34, 35 foot hole over here just southeast of the access site. And then another discussion about TSI and how that was developed, was actually developed at Ball State University in Indiana. One of the limnologists there, limnologists are folks that study lakes. He came up with a mathematical equation that you could use to classify lakes, and it's based on those 3 parameters that we talked about. And basically it's the chlorophyll A, or it's the spring phosphorus, which this year, because nobody could use a boat back in April, if you remember, according to our governor. So we weren't allowed to go out and take samples in April like we normally do. So we had to collect them in the fall. So actually this number this year was based on fall collection of phosphorus, and then the summer chlorophyll A and Secchi transparency. And you can see that the numbers have fluctuated. These are the values going back to 2013. And I think 4 or 5 out of the 7, or actually there's 8. I guess it's 5 out of the 8 fall in the mesotrophic range. So we're classifying Wolverine Lake as mesotrophic. There are a couple of outliers that go into oligotrophic back in 2016, again in 2018. And then last year, we had some numbers that caused it to go into eutrophic. This year, we're just kind of straddling on the edge there. Although this year, because one of the sites was not completely mixed when we took that sample in the fall. So that kind of skewed the phosphorus numbers a little higher than they probably should have been. So that pushed it more towards eutrophic than it probably actually would have been if we had collected the samples in the spring. So I wouldn't get too concerned about this year's value. So anyway, that is basically, oh yeah, and then there's a discussion about temperature and dissolved oxygen, how it affects fish and how it can
So
also.
how do you, real quick, you're doing like a weighted average across the 3 sites that you're measuring, or you're doing, how do you average it across those 3 sites?
So yeah, it's an average of the 3 sites. That's
Okay.
what the TSI is based on.
Except
It's
for
not-
phosphorus, right?
No, phosphorus is average 2, but it's
Only in the spring.
So
right. It's only the spring. Yep. So
I mean, the obvious question that everybody's gonna ask, I mean, in the 2016, 17, 18, was that, lower number driven by an extraordinarily low number in Penny Lake with, with aerator on, or was it driven by
yeah.
something?
So I've got.
Is it an average that got pulled down by one section of the lake or something? I don't
So,
believe that to be
I've got
true.
the actual data here.
Yep.
Of those 3 parameters. So this is the phosphorus, and this is the average phosphorus.
I think we're still seeing your other little log here, unless my computer froze.
No, I can't, I'm seeing the report, not
Yeah.
the,
Oh, okay. Let me.
We're just seeing the TSI right now.
Okay. Let me.
I'm just curious, like, of that TSI, what percentage of it was from what part of the lake? Did we get the whole score to drag down because we did something
Yeah, so
well in Penny Lake?
yeah.
Or something like that?
That's a good point. If you have a high number at one site, it can draw or it can skew the whole data set. Correct.
Yeah, or
Did
the
you
opposite.
have-
The opposite being if you have a low number at one site because we had a system installed.
Right.
Maybe that's observable in this number.
But overall, I'd say the numbers are pretty even across the sites, except for this year at the one site, which was
Okay.
Penny Arm. Penny Arm was the one that wasn't. It was mixed all the way down to about 30 feet, but the last 10 feet wasn't mixed.
Do you have this calculation, this TSI number per site for each year?
Yep, I can get you. I mean, it's not in the report, but I can get you that data if you want it.
I think that'd be
It's all
valuable.
in an
And-
Excel
and our-
spreadsheet.
If there's
our
no,
actual
sorry, real quick.
score
if
for
there's
the
no-
year was, what was it? 39, right on the line? Or
49.
Yeah, you're 48, which
48.
is right at the line this year.
Okay, so, from my perspective, I want to know what we can do to make this trend the other way. I mean, you say don't pay attention to 2020, but 2019 was bad.
Yep.
So,
Yep. So
what can we do to move the needle here? I mean, we're talking about phosphorus, we're talking
Yep.
about Seshi discs, and we're talking about chlorophyll. So,
right. So you're talking primarily about the sources of phosphorus in your system, which you have what's called external sources, which are what runs off people's lawns, you're in an urban setting, so you're getting, not only you're getting the stuff running off lawns, but you're also collecting stuff from the roads and all the infrastructure that's in place. There's not as much infiltration in an urban setting as there is, say, in an undeveloped lake. You get a lot more percolation through the soil in a situation like that. So what's falling down from the atmospheric and picking up, when you have construction going on, if there's a lot of building going up around the lake, either people are not so much new construction, but there's a lot of renovations going on.
yeah.
What that causes is a disturbance to the soil. And then if you don't have proper silt fence up, which to be honest with you, about half of the silt fence I see visiting not just your lake, but all over the state is improperly put in. And it doesn't seem like people are really enforcing it that much. And so there's a lot, like when you have bare soil, a lot of that can transport to the lake in a hurry if it's right next to the lake. So that's one source. The other thing is obviously fertilizer. You're applying fertilizer to your lawn. There's ways you can mitigate the runoff, but putting in buffer strips along shore, or leaving some natural vegetation along the shore and not putting up as much seawall. Of course, if you don't have seawall in certain parts of the lake, you could have erosion too. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But
Well,
yeah, I mean, it's just you would have to look at the watershed. You're primarily in a headwater area
mhm.
of the, I believe you're in the Huron River system.
Yes, we are.
We're on
So,
watershed.
yep. So you're in a headwater, which is good because you don't have a huge area draining to the lake. But the area that is highly developed. So you're going to have some of those problems from the highly developed areas.
What about chlorophyll?
Yeah, chlorophyll is just going to measure the algae in the water. So
Okay.
when you have a lot of algae, the chlorophyll is going to be high, and when you don't, it's going to be low. So overall, your chlorophyll is not bad. In the numbers I'm looking at, there were a couple spikes over the years, but overall, it's not bad. Now we're not measuring it right near shore where you might have more algae. We're measuring it in the deeper parts of the lake. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
From your analysis, then from the data, the big driver and where we're at is on the phosphorus.
Right. I think that's the most indicative parameter that you're looking
Okay,
at.
so I would like to start taking some sort of measured approach to at least attempting to limit the phosphorus in our lake.
Mhm.
And so guess we're going to need to look into that.
Yeah, and there's other sources. I don't know if the lake is completely sewered or not, or if you still have septic fields.
Yeah.
Parts of the lake.
Yeah. Most of it
Things
is
like
sewer.
that. But yeah, if you're able to mitigate phosphorus, it will cut down on algae growth. One of the things we're looking at in that canal study, which I don't want to talk too much about that, during this water quality discussion, but there's certain ways you can polish phosphorus that's in the water. There's nutrient inactivation as one of the means of cutting down on algae growth as well, particularly if it's in a smaller area like the canals. But it's harder to implement that over a lake because then you're talking about a lot of money.
Right.
But if you can focus on one area, it's not as bad.
Oh, you mentioned sewers. Is there any data that you have that would indicate? I mean, obviously a sewer system failure would be a problem, or septic failure.
Yep.
But other than septic failure, is there any influence that you can determine from septic fields?
Yeah, it's
on a
hard.
lake?
It's hard to measure actual septic seepage because it's so slow.
Yeah.
It's really hard. I mean, you can do dye tests and things like that, by flushing dye down through your septic system.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly where you're getting that seepage from, particularly for a lake like yours where it's kind of piecemeal, where parts of the lake are sewered and parts aren't.
Okay.
Yeah. If you could, I mean, if you could do that, you'd make a lot of money if you came up with something that could do that, because it would, all the engineering firms that do sewers would buy into that right away. So,
Yeah. Well, we're trying.
so yeah, this last page, one of the things we added is my coworker Pam Tyning put together a series of videos, and they're short. They're like 8 minutes long. And so this link here, if you go to that link, it'll show more of a visual of how lakes mix and why it's important, that type of thing.
Okay.
Is there anybody on the board that understands this turnover stuff? Mike, is that something you understand?
Yep, I know what's going on.
Okay, so like in January, can we have a detailed discussion on this? Because I don't get this at all, but I don't want to tie up Paul on it.
Yeah, I can fill you in.
Great.
Or if you want to call me, we don't have to be at a meeting. I can fill you in.
All right.
Yeah, if you watch the video, Mike, it should be a little easier too. Sometimes
Okay.
it's hard to
It's not
understand things on paper.
All right. All right. Is that it, Paul, on water?
That's it for the water quality report. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a board, we need to think about how we can start controlling our own destiny instead of waiting for things to happen here, but that's not for today's discussion. So, are you gonna report in on the canal stuff too?
Yeah. So I've got, oh, that's the aeration thing. I got too many things opened up here. So it's not it. Okay, here it is. Can you guys see that or?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the area that we took sediment depth measurements. And I apologize, these numbers are kind of small to fit them on there. But you can see that it varies quite a bit from what we measured was the circled waypoints that I have along the shoreline.
Real quick, the units here are feet.
Yes, this is in feet. Yep.
Yeah.
So these units are every 300 feet along the shore. We took a measurement kind of from the middle of the channel. So you can see that what we measured was the depth to the soft bottom, which is basically the water depth. And then the depth by driving a rod into the water or into the sediment until we started getting some resistance.
Holy cow.
So you can see that there was one area, I think that it was 7.4 feet.
Yeah, it's area
That was
121.
up here in this. And what we're seeing is, yeah, in these elbow areas, or towards the end of a channel or these elbow areas is where we're seeing the most sediment. And I guess that makes sense because that's probably where it settles into those areas because there's nowhere for it to escape.
I mean, especially at 121, boat traffic is just turning there and probably
Yep,
just pushing
exactly.
stuff to the right, pushing stuff to the right over and over and over again, right?
Yep. And so what that sediment is a driving force.
The average thickness of the soft bottom muck is deeper than the water.
Yep, exactly. So it's almost 4 feet and the average depth is about 3 feet.
Jeez.
Mhm.
So it's
Not that we didn't know this.
right. And this was likely a wetland. I mean, before they dug the channel or the canal. So
Yeah.
that's
Not natural.
understandable. It's, probably built up over centuries, like I talked about. That sediment, it's high in nutrients, which are likely driving the algae growth and the fact that the water is stagnant. So in looking at particular, what the different alternatives for improving the situation in there, what I kind of want to just give you guys an outline of what we're looking into. We're not near ready to report the final numbers yet. And we'll probably be able to do that, I would say, in January or February, maybe at the February meeting. We should have the report done in January and then be able to present it at the February meeting. But basically, what I did is I categorized them into the least expensive up to the most expensive alternatives. And for the least expensive, you're talking about nutrient inactivation. And the cheapest one is a product called Seaclear, which is basically an algicide, but it has lanthanum in it, which is a binding agent. So it binds phosphorus. So what it does is when you apply it as an algicide, it lasts a little longer than just putting copper in because it's actually taking some of the phosphorus out of the water. And so that's what drives, continual algae growth. So it doesn't reverse the process or anything, but it slows the algae growth down. So if you applied it 3 or 4 times a year, you would definitely see less algae growth.
Is the source of the sediment? I mean, this is just probably a ridiculous question. I mean, is the source of the sediment algae growing and dying, leaves falling in the lake, natural erosion into the lake? Do we have a concept of what is the thickness of the?
Yeah, it's very silty in spots, and it's in other places. It's primarily leaf material that's decomposing. So it's a
The
combination.
answer, Ryan, is yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I imagine
all
it's
of
got
the
a lot
above.
to do. It's got, especially on the narrow areas, I'm sure it's got a lot to do with leaf accumulation. I know in front of my house, right, I've got 4 massive oak trees that drop all of their leaves in the lake every year, right?
Yep. Yeah, and those leaves decompose very slowly when they're in the sediment.
Yep, I hear you. I pull out as many as I can every year, but it's a losing proposition.
So that's the cheapest.
But that solution that you're talking about is strictly for algae control.
Right. That's not a long-term solution. That's just to basically make it more aesthetically pleasing for the folks out there.
But it essentially does nothing for addressing any of the numbers in this chart.
Exactly. And then you're moving up that food chain into more expensive. You're looking at there's 2 different products. One is called Phoslock, which, as the name implies, locks the phosphorus into the sediment, and it creates like a barrier over the top of it. So instead of just getting a week or so of relief like you would with Seaclear, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the situation, you would get more like a season-long control, or even more than that, depending on if you believe their sales pitch or not. And then another product called EcoBoost.
Paul, are we supposed to be seeing something different other than the sediment thickness map?
No, I mean,
Okay.
I can show you those labels if you want to.
No, I just, you seemed like you were pointing at something, but
No, I just got my notes here. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
I don't have a polished PowerPoint like Dave did, so I apologize for that. So basically, the next step up is these nutrient activation that are more potent than the Seaclear. They have a lot more of the binding agent in them, and they both require a Rule 97 permit, which is different than the ANC or the aquatic nuisance control permit. It's not expensive to get one, but it does take time. You have to go through the process to get it. And then, so the next thing that we talked about, and I confirmed with your new administrator, David Gillum, that there's 3 augmentation wells in the lake, 2 operational ones, and then there's 1 inoperable one that basically is about down in here between points 114 and 115 up at Helmsworth, I think, or Helmsburg.
Yeah.
And then, so if you were to get that operational again, and operating that a few times a year, that could get some movement in here. And besides just keeping the stagnant, it would actually move some of the sediment likely. Not a lot, but it could clear out some of the sediment from this channel where it was very shallow in here. So that might be something that would.
So flush the toilet a couple times a year.
Right, exactly. Yep, exactly. And we'd have to look into what the cost would be for refurbishing that pump. I think it's a pump that's shot or that needs work. And then, so the next option would be to take the air lines that you have currently in Penny Arm, reuse those and reconfigure them into an aeration system for the canal. I talked to Dave Haddis from, he's not with Pond Guy anymore, he's with AirMax, but he's familiar with the system because he was one of the ones that helped install it. But he said that the diffusers would be pretty much shot, so you'd have to buy new diffusers. The airline would be fine, and I think you guys have the compressors still. I think they're stored in the DPW barn or something. But
what would that do for us, Paul? What's I mean, that's equipment that we have less.
Right. So it would circulate the water out there, so you wouldn't get as much surface algae.
Mhm.
It wouldn't eliminate it entirely, but you probably wouldn't get the major algae blooms like you had last spring.
Okay.
If you guys remember that when you had the hydrodictin, that was really bad in the spring.
But
And then-
Paul, Bob Malik, but in that, what you're doing is, and tell me if I'm wrong, aren't you moving that sediment from one spot to another? I mean, you're
Yes.
not eliminating it.
Yeah, you're not eliminating it.
algae.
Nope.
But you're just moving the sediment. So if you tested next year, you might find these numbers in a
Right,
different
exactly. It's
area
moving
from
around.
where you
Yep.
were.
I agree. So again, it's not a permanent solution, but it would improve the conditions
I
by
think
moving the
the-
water
Well,
around.
I
But
think the goal here.
But wouldn't it then possibly put the algae in front of somebody else's house?
No, Bob, I think the ultimate goal here is to move it out into the main lake where the natural processes of turnover
shoreline
and that kind of
currents
stuff
and
can
stuff.
help
Yep.
break it down.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so it's something that's not going to happen
well-
overnight.
No,
It would
but I
take
can
years.
see that, but unless you pump it out of those canals, you're just moving it around in canals.
Right, so that's a good prelude. So my last thing I have on there is dredging, which is a permanent solution. Of course, the problem with dredging is it's prohibitively expensive. You're probably looking at even just to dredge, even to spot dredge the areas that are worse, you're probably looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the main problem is the disposal of the sediments that you're taking out of there. It's because you have to do testing, you have to do metals and PNAs, which are polynucleic acids and or aromatics, and then you got the metals. I think there's 11 metals that you have to test for. And typically what you find in these situations is arsenic or manganese that's high. And then sometimes you'll even find some PNAs in there. But typically when you're in an urban setting, what you end up doing in these dredging projects is they have to truck it off to a class 2 landfill. So then you're looking at, on a per yard basis, you're looking at $25 to $30 per cubic yard, which adds up in a hurry. So that's why you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars, even to do a spot dredge.
do we know, and I don't know, Paul, you might not, but does anybody have the history of this arm of the lake? I mean, obviously it was not natural, it was dug out. Has maintenance been done in this area ever? Or was it basically dug out, plop homes there, sell the homes and let it be?
Probably the latter, but we could do some checking with the village to see if they have any records of any work being done. It used to be you could do dredging, say 10, 15 years ago for a lot cheaper. What's happened is the regulatory end is they've put in a lot more hurdles now, in the testing and stuff costs money too. So
You spent a few minutes kind of going high level through some of the options. But you said that January you probably have a more.
Yeah, and we'd be able to give you some harder numbers so you can actually see,
So I think we
what the
should wait.
costs would be.
Yeah, I think we should hold judgment until we see. I mean, ultimately, we got to decide the problem that we're solving. I personally think that obviously this year we had a pretty significant algae problem, particularly back in like 104, 103 area. I think when we finally got some rain and we changed the chemical that we were using, I think we had some success back there this year for the algae. But I think from the homeowners back there, it's probably predominantly right this muck issue or the lack of depth of the water. People complaining that they can barely get their boat in. So that type of issue, I think we need to obviously take some look at the numbers and understand what it takes.
Right.
What's feasible,
Right.
what's not feasible.
Yep, I agree.
Do you
So
know?
that's all I had, unless you guys have questions.
Real quick, you mentioned, and we all should know this, but I hope I'm not the only one who doesn't. Where the other two augmentation pumps back here are?
Yep, so it was in the email that I got today from David, if I can find that email. Not that one. Yep,
The
so
one down by the Greenaway.
there's one
Yeah,
at
Penny Lake Arm, and there's one over by
Terry Street, it says, on the
Claire-
north side of the lake. And there's one on Wolverine Drive at Nantucket Boat Launch.
way down at the end.
Yeah, it's the south end.
So Paul, are you talking about coming in January or February with this report?
Probably February would be safer that we'd have it complete by then with the holidays and stuff.
Putting you on the calendar.
All right.
Okay, it was a good intro. I mean, just first is measuring the problem. It's good to finally actually get numbers that are recent and relevant for some of the stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ryan, the problem is if we're talking about passage of boats, I mean, the only thing that's going to help that's dredging, and that's crazy money.
yeah, I think let's see what the numbers come back at, right?
Yeah, we had a project on Lake Oakland that it was a channel and they went ahead with the dredging on it and they just paid for it. The people in the channel paid for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
we
another
got-
option too. I mean,
We got to look at the costs first and then figure out what happens from there. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can split the money and
Well, yeah, maybe it would qualify for a SAD.
Yep.
It's a property improvement.
yeah, that's what they did at Lake Oakland. It was through Waterford Township.
Yeah.
Bob Malik here. I have a question.
Mhm.
You talk about dredging and permits and things. Is it feasible to go to the state? And I'm just looking at like your location 101, where you've got a 4.5 foot soft bottom. Is there a chance that we could apply for a permit to take samples from that area, run it through the different 10 or 12 tests that you talked about to get a thought of what we have? I mean,
Yeah,
as a
you can
spot
do that.
check to find out?
Yeah, you could do that, and we can give you a cost for that too. It's what the lab, I think it's around 400 and something per sample, because they have to run a bunch of different
Yeah, I'm just throwing the
parameters.
question out there as a possibility of looking into it and not going into the hundreds of thousands.
Well, let me change that question around a little bit differently. If you were going to pick a spot out there to take a soil, a sample of the bottom, Paul, where would you take it at?
Yeah, I mean, what the requirements are based on how big of an area that you're dredging. You have to take a sample per, X amount of yards that you're removing.
Okay.
So it depends. I mean, if you're doing a spot dredging, say the shallowest parts are this area between 108 and 107, this area here, and then this channel down here. Those are the shallowest parts. So maybe you would focus on those areas.
Mhm.
I would love to, think that if we do something here, that we have some sort of control over the source. Like I said, if it's homeowners, if we get to the point we say we're going to dredge stuff or spend some money, and homeowners are going to spend some money, and we have to try and educate people on what can be done to make sure it doesn't need to be done again in 10 or 15 years, right? If it's leaf removal, if it blah, 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 whatever it happens to be, what can we do? How do we tell people to maintain their property or modify their property to try and minimize it from happening again? In addition to, whatever, maybe augmentation pumps and other things can be looked at.
Yeah, it might be more than one thing, like you said, that ultimately would be the best solution.
All right, well, I think this is cool, and we'll all be looking forward to February.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for the time being.
Okay, Paul.
Paul, thank you.
Thank you for
Yep.
that.
All right. Did you need anything else from me, Mike?
Well, I was just wondering if you wanted to just give us your quick dissertation or quick overview of your opinion of aeration.
Yeah, I sent you that one. I don't know if I can put it up there right now, but I can find it here. Yeah, so we had put together a little one-page synopsis, and this was based on some recent data that was collected, a pretty in-depth study by Hoyer et al. 2017. And this is not us saying it, it's basically the findings that they had from that study. And I mean, I can email it to you guys. It'd probably be easier than me just reading it. Basically, they came to the conclusion that the aeration did not do much for muck reduction.
All right. I'll buy that. Are there any other collateral effects of aeration besides muck reduction? Oxygenation?
Yep, and that's what they talked about. It can be beneficial in certain situations for fish. If you have fish that are being affected by low oxygen, particularly over winter, if you got real shallow lakes that are prone to winter kill, it's definitely effective for that. Also, it can reduce surface algae, which is primarily, why we're talking about it in the canal area.
All right.
But I think the jury is definitely still out on muck reduction. That seems to be, the data suggested it just moved it around. It didn't eat, quote unquote, eat the muck.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to send that to all of us or send it to me,
Yep.
and we can read it on our own. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Anybody have anything else for Paul?
Thank you, Paul. Good presentation.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a good-
Paul.
Have a good Christmas if I don't talk to you before.
Yeah, happy holidays.
All right.
Happy holidays.
See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
All righty, back to the agenda. Administration report. The current lake level is 916.75. That's right on target from what we were told last month. So we hit our target as far as lake level goes. I know of no noteworthy complaints to the village. This time of year is usually pretty quiet. Ryan, anything on social media that jumps out?
You're muted.
Oh, no, nothing.
All
Everybody.
right. So moving on to the chairperson's report and general communication of the board. Well, finally, Bob, welcome to the board.
Welcome, Bob,
Thank you.
and congratulations.
And yeah,
Welcome, Bob.
Well,
I was watching and it looked like you were a willing participant, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Well, I appreciate the acknowledgement, gentlemen. Look, it's all new to me, and like I said, I'll probably throw some questions out there that a few of you will scratch your head over, but it's one of those, that's the only way I'm gonna learn. And, if I get out of line, feel free to holler at me.
Well, Bob, I'm going to tell you already that what we need from you is that council view, and you've already interjected a couple points where you know that will come up if it goes to council. It has to be explained. So that's the kind of input we need from you. We appreciate that. I understand you've been on a lot of boards.
Well, I've been around the table a few times, but it's just to go back to Paul's proposal, okay? And I'm jumping around a little on you, but under B, okay, he's got item 2, measure bacteria levels monthly, and he's doing it at 4 different places. Well, I happen to be in Spring Lake Heights, which Oakland County Board of Health has shut us down here for the last 2 years because of bacteria. So if Oakland County's coming in and doing these checks, why do we need to spend $500 with Progressive when, it's not giving us the whole lake? Okay? If Oakland County's coming in and checking for bacterias and things.
That may
It's
be
just something I see in his proposal.
that may be a state requirement. I mean, I know that Oakland comes in, but that could be an emergency thing. I mean, I really don't know, but it could be an emergency because you've been shut down a couple of times. They may come out to monitor just that site.
Well, I would think if they're finding E. coli and bacteria problems in one area of the lake, I think they're going to check more than just the one. And I guess it would be our responsibility to ask them, are they checking other spots?
I'm pretty sure that they're not. They're just coming out and there's an order from somebody somewhere. It comes out of a black box that says, go over to this spot and take a bacteria sample. And that's all they'll do.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question. Who would I be willing to contact Oakland County? Who would I contact to find these things out?
Water commissioner.
Water Commissioner of Oakland County?
Is that the name of it? The drain commissioner, water commissioner. I can't remember what they call it in Oakland County.
All right, well, I guess I'll have to do some digging and find out, but I'm curious because like I say, if they're doing it, I'm looking at his proposal and it went up $500. Well, that's $500 we don't have to spend if Oakland County's double checking us.
There's also the problem that Oakland County may not deem it necessary to share their information with us, even though it's our lake. But
yeah, but
they just say
they
we're
are
not going to give you the
pretty
numbers.
open.
What's that?
Yeah, they are pretty open. and between our engineering and our new administrator and everybody, we should be able to find a way of getting information. So I guess I'm being the devil's advocate here, but
I
I will look
appreciate your
into it and see
enthusiasm.
what I can find out for a starter.
In my years of working with these types of situations, somebody's going to build a kingdom and they're not going to open the gate for you.
Okay, I have a
Whether
question.
you think it's right or not, and it probably is, but they're just not going to do it.
Okay, who am I speaking with? Because I don't know.
This is Mike Sargent.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mike. It's just, I only see 4 people and one of them's including myself. So I don't know who I'm speaking back and forth with. Thank you.
There's me now. I took the citation cuttlefish off. So
thank you.
I'm just sharing some things that I've experienced over my career of dealing with people in water, in government that deals with water. Yes, they're doing it, but we're not giving you the numbers because we don't have to. That means we would have to put down our donut and coffee for 5 minutes and do something.
All right. Well, again, I have no idea. I'm a novice at it. I'm new, but I'm willing to see if I can come up with anything. And if not, I'll be the first guy to say, hey, I struck out.
I'm not discouraging you from trying it. I fully support you going for it.
Thank you.
Okay, Bob. Any other comments before we move on?
No, that's good for me. Thanks.
All right. So, chairperson's report and general communication to the board. I reviewed all the motions and action items for the previous meeting. I think we've got them all addressed or soon to be addressed as we go through this current agenda. So I don't see anything hanging fire. I would like to talk about the calendar for 2021. How do I share my screen?
Green button at the bottom.
Green button at the bottom.
It says share screen.
Can you guys see this?
There you go.
All right. So
Yay.
the only person I got any feedback from was Doug. I tried to roll that in. What I'd like to do is start to put together sort of a living calendar for next year, starting with this month, actually. So one of the things that I have on the calendar for January is the water management contract review, which is what we were just talking about. I have sent the proposal over to David to review. He seems to think that, and I agree, that the proposal is reasonable. I asked him about checking against other people like we did before. He didn't think that was necessary, considering the fact that we're very pleased with what we're getting out of A&E Progressive right now. So next month we'll talk about the contract and what we're going to move forward. I will get with Paul on your questions about the algae. I'm sorry, the bacteria collection sites and how many there are. Anyway, so the way I want to get a buy-in with you guys on how we're going to lay out the calendar. I'm thinking about, we've always been talking about doing monthly topics of focus, and we're already getting down the road here with that. We other topics next month we want to talk about aeration. We may want to push that back until we get the canal report. I have in here February to check the ice and schedule an algae check. March.
Well, February seems early for that.
What's that?
February seems early for ice out.
Okay.
I would think that'd be more in March, April.
Move it.
End of March, early April.
Okay. I'll move it down. On the transponders, we'll talk about that in a minute, but we have a second guy we're going to talk to if you guys are interested. I certainly am. I also want to put a column in for Progressive and when and what they're doing, and then other due outs. So somehow I lost my previous version, but I have like several columns here under events because in the middle of the year we get very busy especially around June. So anyway, I wanted to get some buy-in from you guys on how we're going to lay the calendar out. If that's acceptable, I'll keep driving on with that. I also want to put together timelines on specific items, including putting together a long-term plan, the sewer SAD, budget prep, canal project, anything else that we think is important. So I want to post this up to our new site that Ryan's put together, and we can start chewing on a little bit. Ryan, I wanted to ask you about managing that cloud site. Do you have any idea how to keep control of the data?
No, we gotta work with admin. I've been working with them over email. They'll probably end up getting us a Dropbox or something. For the time being, I just have it located on that storage drive. But
okay,
there's some questions on whether it would be subject to a FOIA request from other people, and then if it's a personal site, that they get all your personal information and yada yada yada. So they're trying to figure out an appropriate location. So it will move once we get the info.
Okay.
I'm working with admin on it.
So appreciate that. We want to find a way that we can all share the data. But my concern is if, for instance, we put the calendar up there and then people start adding and deleting and editing.
Oh yeah, well, no, the link that I sent, nobody can edit it. Just the people that I shared it with, which is on the.
Okay. All right.
That's not. It's not. None of that site that I have is public, right? In that it's not. It's a private site, so you could. Only the people that I gave right access can actually edit it.
That's that Google Drive, right?
Yeah. But
Okay.
we're going to get an actual, like a Dropbox or something that we can use as a shared drive as a board that's actually quote unquote sanctioned by the village, but it's not there.
Okay. So what I want to do is probably in the meantime, while we're figuring all that out, I'll revise this calendar, and then I want to start passing around, and we can start, adding to it. Doug, I apologize. Somewhere along the line, I added to this and then I lost it. So now I got to redo it. Doug added a lot of stuff about boat counts and goose roundup and all the other things.
Yeah, the one I saw had that on there. And I was going to say, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I added I was going to request that we launch a SAD campaign, at least a outreach in January. And I put it on there, but it's probably still on mine, but I don't know what I got to do to get it to share with everybody else. So
that's exactly my concern is,
Okay.
in different levels of editing here and that's not your fault. It's just trying to figure out how we're going to pass this document around.
Sure.
But anyway, if we're all in agreement in the concept here, I'll keep working on this calendar and start filling things in.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
And it fills awfully quickly. I already had, I wish I could find the one I did already, but I lost all the data.
Mike, Bob Malik here.
Yeah, Bob.
I'm looking at your calendar and I could be wrong, but isn't March a little early for a transponder? Because I think we're still fighting ice and stuff. Wouldn't April be a little more appropriate?
Yeah, probably.
I'm just asking a question,
No, I honestly can't remember
because of the water coming back up.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll move those down. I'll
I'm
move
not saying
ice out and install transponder system back. But
I'm just thinking with the weather conditions, the weather conditions might make March too early.
Right. Okay, well, we'll push it back a month. I just
Well,
want,
you don't, Mike, let me say, you don't have to on my account. I'm asking the question, okay? I'm just
no,
thinking.
it might make
ahead.
sense, especially after what Mike said and also, we get into the next topic, which is transponders. You know, we can talk about that as well, but I think, you know, I've got another vendor that I'd like to share with you guys next January or this January, and we can go over a different system. So anyway,
Okay,
bottom line is this: I will relay this out. I appreciate the input. Honestly, I can't remember when the ice leaves the lake, and I've lived here for 8 years, but somehow I don't. I will push those back. So if you guys agree with the concept, I'll keep working on the layout, and then over the holidays we'll pass it around, and January we'll have something else to chew on, and then maybe at that time we'll figure out how we're going to be able to manage our documents. And if it has to all come back to me, that's fine too. So
Yeah, I still think we have to have, which I think I started writing some stuff, but whatever we have is lessons learned from the year of maintenance, you know, whatever we learned in 2020, write that stuff down and review it in February of 21 and make sure it's all fresh on our mind of the things we learned last year so we don't make the same mistakes again. And make sure that we put it on the calendar that says review lessons learned, February 21. And then we have a separate document that's all the stuff that we learned, the preemptive stuff we may have to do based on weather, the treatment of the algae in the canal, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. Okay. All right. So if you guys agree, I will move on to continuing business. Transponders. I have a second system quoted. I think it's actually nicer than the one we just heard about. I'm not sure if I shared it with you guys, but I'll send out the quote to you. What I really like about it is, first of all, the guy really knew his product. Second of all, it will absolutely send out the alarms that we want, and it's also easily expanded. Bob, if you could probably notice from the first quote, as you add features, the price goes way up, but there is flexibility built into the system so that if someday we want to go beyond temperature and lake level, we can. And maybe at someday in the future we want to, but second system is a little bit different. It works on a push system, not a pull system. And I would like to have the guy come in and make his presentation at the January meeting. So if you guys are okay with that, actually, and I believe that system's actually cheaper than the one we just looked at as well. So I will, if you're all in agreement with that, I will line that guy up for January. And he said he'd call in. He's in Massachusetts, I think somewhere out there in the New England area, Vermont, Massachusetts. But he said that his system is pretty turnkey, and we could get it installed without too much difficulty on our own. I do like the questions about maintenance and annual costs. We want to make sure that we cover that and keep that in the forefront, because we don't want to buy a system that costs us thousands of dollars to keep up every year. That just won't work. So if you're in agreement with that, I'll line that guy up for January, and we'll have a similar type of approach. I will probably prepare him a little bit more than I did David. I want to make sure that he comes in with the right presentation. So that's transponders. Any discussion on the harvester?
If we want to have a discussion on it, I have like kind of a summary of where we ended up if you guys are interested.
Sure.
Sure. Okay. Give me 1 second. And it's not, I didn't prepare anything specific, but I'll at least show you. Let's do the whole screen. Can you guys see this?
Look at you go.
Can you see this?
Yeah.
All right. So we did change the reports, which I think are way more useful. So if anybody wants to see the way that it's done now, we get a recommendation. This is a bad screenshot that I took, but all the reports now get uploaded to the website with the dates that are matched to the harvest maps. The harvest maps are now, you can see when we changed, there used to be two maps for every harvest, but now it's a single map that has the whole lake on it. The operator takes that map and then actually marks where he harvests and puts the date on it specific to when he was out there, and keeps a rolling map. So when we say, okay, here's the harvest map for the next 2 weeks, we'll keep working off the same map and say, okay, I got this on the 14th, this on the 18th. If I went back on the 10th because this was a complaint, I'll circle it again. So you could see if any residents are actually interested as to what days the harvester were past that area and what the recommended harvest areas are for a given week. It's all in a single place, which I think is much more useful for anybody that's actually interested in what the harvester is actually doing. From a time perspective, I got to get double check. You know, it looks like 2018. I got these from Tabitha for the total hours it was used. The 69 hours and 141 hours. I'm pretty sure that's the operator hours. It's not necessarily the hours the machine was physically running on the lake. When I was tabulating it, I was looking at the hours the machine was physically on the lake, which was 132 hours. The total operator hours that I saw in the reports is 157. So it's just like kind of what it looks like as far as like how many hours they were out on a given day in blue, and then how many loads they took. So pretty regularly we're pulling 2 loads. Sometimes in the mid-June and later in August we were pulling 4 loads, almost a load an hour out of the lake. But generically, the harvester's pulling 2 loads. I mean, it justifies the size, obviously, of the harvester. If we're pulling 2 and 4 loads, almost a load an hour in some of these days, going to anything smaller would be unrealistic. So it's pretty much on average. If we look at, I guess I could just average it here in the document, but let's just see. Let's see. Actually, let me just add these up. This whatever. So if we say per hour, yeah, so half a load an hour on average over the entire year, but obviously much more in the summer months. This is kind of what it looks like, the usage over the year, hours used over the year. Obviously, July, we have a big kind of spike. We have a flat spot here this year. We had some hoses break on the harvester that basically took it down through mid-July. It was down for almost 2 weeks, almost from the 14th, and really didn't get out operating again until the 28th. So we did have a pretty decent 2-week span here where we didn't really have the harvester running. But overall, like I said, it's basically pulling 2 to 4 loads every time it's out there. It was out there a ton this year, over 160 hours. It was out on the lake, 34 times between July and September. So basically every 3 days it was out on the lake. So this is just what I have accumulating the reports that were put together. I think it's give us, I intend to do this as we move forward and kind of better track, our usage over years, and, the uptime and downtime and how much we're pulling out of the lake every year. And I think tracking it with the map will give the residents a better idea of when and where it was in front of their house. So
Yeah, that's good stuff.
It seems a little weird that it's either 2 or it's 4. There was never 3 loads. It's always
Yeah,
a 2
I think
or a 4.
I think it's basically what he's willing to do in 4 hours, and then where he's harvesting. Yeah, but yeah, it's never once was it marked as 3. Some ones, some 4s. I mean, there are days in the beginning. I think in the beginning he wasn't keeping as good track. I think now that we have it in this method, it'll be better, and I can work with Grant to make sure that it's documented so it can be useful. But I mean, there are days that it was written, in June, that he's out there for 4.5 hours and had 0 loads, right? I mean, you can't actually believe that. Otherwise, he's probably just out there drinking beers. So I would assume that that's not actually the case. But here, right, it's 6.5. He's out there for 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours cutting, and number of loads is not marked, right? On those locations, not marked. So to me, that's just documentation purposes. So obviously, there's some noise in the numbers here, but I think we can get it cleaned up. I think, and also, a lot of the 2s might be 1.5, right? And then you just counted as 2 because you unloaded twice, right? So who knows? We'll figure it out. But I think we'll track it in this manner, similar, and maybe do this kind of thing year over year and see how it correlates to, resident complaints and other things. So that's all I had for the harvester.
All right, thank you.
Looks good.
Coming along. Lakeshore erosion, I have nothing to report there. Canals and muck, I think we just talked about that ad nauseum. Don't know of any lake enforcement issues. However, I will be putting on a visit from the chief in early spring on the calendar. And aeration, I don't know. I see a light at the end of the tunnel on aeration, possibly we might have some use for it. So
wait till February.
What happens when we get done with the canal study. Mike, you sent me a note. You sent a note about some of our numbers getting better after while we were running the aerators. And besides dissolved oxygen, are there any other? Do we know any of the collateral benefits
Of aeration?
Yeah.
I don't know right off the top of my head. I do believe that there's not a definitive answer about the phosphorus in aeration, but it would seem to me that you would get some oxidation going on, at least some dilution, if anything, with the aeration going. But I still maintain that we didn't have those aerators in the right depth at all. So it's hard to say if we got any benefits, but it did seem to be on that graph that there was something going on during that period of time between when the aerators were in. It looked like the phosphorus was lower.
That's kind of why I was asking, about when they had the phosphorus measurements and the SECI measurements per region. So see if he gets those back. It'd be interesting to see if it varies per region based on where the aeration was or wasn't.
I think your questions about the data is very valid. I thought Paul was going to share the data over the years. I can share it with you guys. It's all over the place. Yep. And I think I'm thinking that some of it has to do with the time of year and what's going on in the lake at that time. He alluded to that. So as we try to control our trophic state, I'm trying to eliminate the randomness of some of this data.
Poor signal to noise ratio.
Yeah. So we'll keep peeling back the onion on it. It's I think it's going to become at least one of my passions for next year is to get into this, because after taking that course, we all learned about the trophic states, and you can't really go backwards, but you sure can try to slow it down. So So that's one of the things that I'm really wondering about.
Well, you can go backwards. It just costs you a lot of money to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I would, part of the thing that Paul struck me with on his data is that, one of the measuring points was near the mouth of Penny Lake. And there was a seawall a significant seawall that went in there this year.
Oh, yeah.
So when you have, I didn't realize that those issues could skew those kinds of measurements, and we've got construction all over this lake all the time.
It's not going to
So-
be next year.
I know. It's not going to be next year?
It's not going to be good next year.
No, it's not. But those are the kinds of things that'll be tough to meet a goal if we can't control that.
Well, he made a passing comment about silt fencing, and that wasn't done.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we need to dive into that a little bit too, because they shore a lot of them up. If they're all up wrong or not, half of them are wrong. That we're really wasting a lot of time and making ourselves feel good about something that's not actually doing any good. So
Right.
um,
Cardboard cop.
yeah. So more to follow on that. I'm going to drill into this. I really want to drill into this stuff, especially with the phosphorus. Plant control, I think we can skip over that. I wanted to talk very quickly about our long-term plan before we get into the sewer set. I really don't want to take away from your time. But I've been thinking about this a lot, and first thing that comes to my mind is we need to have a place to jump off from. And, Ryan, you basically alluded to this, and that was, where are we, what are we starting with? So I started putting down these ideas about quantifying the lake, and then the list kept getting longer and longer. But I really think that I would like to really take a swing at really quantifying our lake.
I started making a map. I'm not even anywhere close to it, but a map that's got layers that has all the road endings and accesses and stuff.
Really?
So
That's great.
You can do it in Google Maps and personalize layers and put the drains in and put GPS points. I just need to get the data, and then I could build that, and we could use it as a reference when we want to talk about where the road, where the augmentation pumps are, we should know that, and we should easily be able to see it on a map.
That's here, right here in the underground pumps. I don't know squat about them.
Yeah, I'll work on getting
one of them doesn't run, and
yep, I'll get a map that will at least locate all of these things and be dynamic that we can interact with.
But what I wanted to talk about was sort of the concept here. I don't mind. I think that we need to quantify what we have. Okay. So that's why I want to spend some time to really drill into the state of the lake as of the beginning of this year or the beginning of next year. Put a stake in the ground, get the numbers, and lay it out. And then I would think that we want to start putting together our long-term goals and objectives based around what our charter is, and that's lake health, safety, and recreational use. And I started filling this in, and these are very broad, okay? But if we quantify what we have, and we put together some very, very broad, long-range goals and objectives, then we can start getting into what we really want to focus on in 2021. And man, I started doing that, and we got a lot going on already. So, the sewer sat, I think, has got to be right up at the top of this, along with the canal study. We need to figure out what we're doing with our aeration stuff. I really like the idea of attacking the algae, pardon the pun. We want to talk about the lake monitoring equipment. all these things that we want to do, I think we need to put into our 2021, focus plan. So the only reason why I want to bring this up today, guys, is to say, if you agree with this concept, I'll keep drilling into it and I'll start reaching out to get some support on some of the pieces to it. But in the meantime, I think we really need to think about for January, what we want to be when we grow up, what are our long-term goals and objectives? We need to lay those down, and then we need to decide in 2021 what we're going to do to start influencing those long-term goals and objectives. And they all have to tie back into what we're chartered to do, and that's health, safety, and recreational use. So if you guys, if you agree with this, I'll keep working on it, and I'll start sharing it, and I'll start asking for input and any kind of, and if anybody has any better ideas. But I really want to get started on this piece up here over the next month, because we're all going to have some time. Start putting some fruit on this tree and get it all put together. So from a conceptual standpoint, is everybody okay with this, at least to start?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
All
That
right, well,
Parks and Rec thing that you pointed out was a pretty interesting document as well. That's a
Yeah,
pretty comprehensive
and I don't-
plan for them.
And one of the things that they did, which we'll probably have to get to eventually, is we'll have to probably, once we decide where we're going and get the broad strokes done, it may be time to do a survey based around where we think we want to be.
Yeah.
And that's always a good thing to get the public input. So I went over the last survey and didn't get a lot out of it. So
The last survey, if I remember correctly, there wasn't too much in the response either.
yeah.
That's the biggest problem we have with the surveys, is getting a response.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep working on that too. Anyway, if you guys agree with this, I'll start putting the meat on the bones, and we'll start in January. We'll figure out how we can start working and sharing on this. And Ryan, I will definitely get back to you about these maps, because I really think that's important for us to understand.
I've been telling you, we need a big screen in that room that's got everything laid out, and we want to talk about a place. That big static printed map is like, that should be a 90-inch plasma.
Right.
The dynamic map.
You can buy a 60-inch screen for $500 now, can't you? Or it's less.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I just think about what I have in my office or in our offices or at work in general. I mean, it would be a screen and it would be interactive.
Okay, so if you guys agree with this, I'll keep driving on, and then I didn't want to steal it. I didn't want to leave some time for Paul to talk about the sewer sad thing. So Paul, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. It won't take too long. Just tell you where I got to. I'd written a piece, and Ryan had made some helpful edits, and I got that. I sent it to Nedro, Brian Nedro, and I wanted to make sure that the kinds of stuff that we're talking about when we start reaching out to folks in the community is appropriate based on what council guidelines are. So far, I haven't heard back from him. I also reached out to Mike Powell through email, but I suspect that's when he was trying to figure out where to hang up his coat. So giving him some time to get his sea legs together, I'll bug him again. But my hope is to get his help in developing a Q&A sheet that we can put on the village website for when we start moving with the SAD thing, for the frequently asked questions stuff. Maybe we can cover some of that territory there. Tabitha did come through. I asked Tabitha to put together a map of eligible sites around the lake, people that have sewers currently, not to have sewers, but where people would be eligible to sign up for a SAD, without identifying who has it, who hasn't, and that sort of thing. People that have it know it, people that don't know it. So we don't necessarily share that information, but we'll have that map, and I want to be able to put that together with a package of information that we either mail out to the homes, or we get on the website, or we email, or something. But I want to put together a package. Now, part of, I think with all the construction, I did have a neighbor that had 100 feet added onto their house, and it cost them 20 grand to hook up to the sewer. I mean, it was just, they had to bake that in to the home improvement they had in mind. And there's a lot going on in this lake. There may be, I can't remember the last time I rode around the lake and didn't see 3 or 4 houses getting stuff done. So that could be an impetus for people getting encouraged to be a part of it, especially if we can get the information in front of them before construction season. So that's why I thought my request will be to at least get approval from the board on the kind of information we want to get out and how we want to get it out in January.
Okay.
And then launch from there.
So yeah, we need to get some dates, and I agree, before spring construction season would be a great time to get that ball rolled.
Yeah. And that would probably break records, because I swear to God, when I went through all the old newsletters, they were working on that SAD for years. But I think we should be able to pull it off quicker.
Yeah, and like I said, I think there's people, I'm regularly getting messages, people asking about it. I'm just saying we're working on it, but I know there's people asking about it.
Yeah.
So Paul, I apologize. I didn't pick up your calendar changes, but would you send those to me directly, and I'll put it on the timeline?
Sure will. Not a problem.
I think that this sewer SAD project you got is one of the most important things we're going to be doing next year, as far as it impacts our lake and our lake health. So,
well, informationally, I would really like to. I wanted to plumb Paul a little bit more while he was here, but I might bug him through email, because there's probably data out there that indicates lakes that either have septic systems or that don't, and some level of quality of the water quality.
I can guarantee that information is out there.
Ken, great.
That's been studied a lot.
Excellent. I think that's something that could be shared and be a motivator for folks. That's it.
Okay. That brings us to future business, which we are placeholders for boat count, unless we have something to add about boats, birds, and the 2021 budget development. Our budget runs through the end of June. Does anybody remember when we had to have it ready? Was it May or was it June?
Seems like we were working on it in March or April.
Okay.
Bob might know this.
Yeah, being on council, I believe you guys start working on it in April, because we have to go ahead and okay it in June. All right, because I believe it becomes effective beginning of July. So I would think sometime in April, May.
Okay, so we're gonna have to make sure that come April, we're ready to go and start working on our budget. And obviously what we want to get done in 2021 and first half of 2022 will be part of that budget. So that's why it's good for us to get ahead of that. All righty.
I also, Mike, Bob Malik here again. Also, what I will do is I will get in touch with Mike Condick and find out when he plans on sending that out, or what's his idea for us to get started on it.
Okay, thank you for
That
that.
way it'll hopefully next meeting I'll be able to tell you.
All right, great.
Bob, maybe we should say our names when we start talking, but you're not going to have to. We all know each other's voices. We're going to know when it's you.
Yeah. Well, you'll find I talk too much, so.
Yeah, you won't have to announce yourself.
All right. So let's move on to liaison reports.
Okay,
You,
I guess
Bob.
the best thing I could tell you, which is you all know we have a new administrator. Our last meeting in November was right the first Monday after the election. There were 3 new council people put into place. And we sat down and went through, as you can tell, I ended up here with the water board and a few other items, committees and things. And that was really it. We didn't get into a lot of detail because of new people that, setting up the boards and things that they'll be involved with. But I will definitely try to keep you totally posted on anything that transpires. And that's about all I can express at this point.
Thank you. Did the planning
You're
commission
welcome.
get together?
No, I'm afraid we didn't make it last time.
Okay,
Sorry. I knew you were counting on something.
yes.
Sounds like pumpkin time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're down to comments from the board members. Anybody have any comments that they haven't already expressed?
We know the date of the January meeting. I didn't look yet.
It's on the minutes.
Okay, it looks like the 6th.
January 6th.
Yeah, it's
January 6th.
I wasn't sure where it landed with New Year's and stuff.
You gonna be around?
Are we allowed to go anywhere really?
I don't know.
I'm not going anywhere.
All right, guys. I will be communicating with all of you on between now and the next meeting on developing our state of the lake. I do plan to do that in slide format. Ryan, a part of that's going to be maps, and a part of that's going to be harvester. So gonna need some help there.
Yep.
I think you're most of the way down on you're down the road on that already. So okay, unless anybody has any other comments, I move we adjourn.
Or
I'll second that.
Roll call. Do we need roll call, Sherry? I think we all agree we're ready to adjourn.
I object.
You can't object. You weren't here last time.
Probably not a bad idea to do roll call.
Okay.
Hurst,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Martini,
Yep.
Sargent,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Snyder,
yes,
and who was the second on that?
I did.
Ryan was.
All right, thank you.
I win, Paul.
Thank you,
You did.
Sherry.
All right.
Out here.
Hey, Paul,
Yeah.
I'm going to send you an email. I did a quick search on effects on lakes with septic systems.
Excellent.
And there's stuff from the EPA. There's stuff from Pennsylvania. So there's all sorts of things out there that demonstrate what happens when you have septic systems near a water body.
Wonderful.
So
Great.
I'll send you some of those links.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate it.
Bob,
Bye, everybody.
Bob Malik, to everybody, have nice holidays.
You too, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Good seeing you. Happy
Take-
holidays, everybody.
Board.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Whoa.